This is SportsReplays here. So yeah, another average week. A bit disappointing. Still a lot better than last week. Still only finished 45,000 in the ranks this week for the round, and only got up to 3,000. So still overall disappointing, but at least I've won a few matches this week. Won 3 league matches. It was just been an overall disappointing season. I mean, usually I struggle at the start, but this season it's been a bit more than usual. I just think players that have traded out have done well, like Humphrey and Fraser, and they just bounce back and perform a great game. And same with Flynn. So 3 players who are traded out, just banging out hundreds is just very frustrating, and it's just very infuriating. But we'll start off with this with Sheasel, 135. So he's bounced back. Had an average first quarter, but he played well for the rest of it and showed why he's one of our top defenders. Main reason why we picked him. So yeah, 135, happy about that. And then Clark, 114. So it's a bit above his season average. So yeah, look, I'm happy with that. Maybe having for a little bit more, but as long as he's consistent and getting an average around about 110, I'll be pretty happy with that. Max Holmes, 70. Now this is sort of where I'm a little bit frustrated with his selection. 70 is just not good enough. I know they're playing a bit of a tougher opponent, but Geelong really was lucky to stay within 5 goals. And midfield got smashed, and Max Holmes was a part of that. So he's still somewhat fairly young, but he's probably still not quite up there with the best midfielders yet. We're thinking, will he get to that point yet? Who knows? Probably almost there, but he's still just maybe a slide off compared to these other midfielders who are probably a little bit more consistent. So hopefully that's his lowest score for a while. It is starting to get a bit of a concern now with a little bit of inconsistency with Max Holmes. That's not a huge problem yet, but if he dishes it up against another next week, then we've got a bit more a huge issue. And then Roberts has bounced back the last couple of weeks, 117. Happy about that. And Bias, 101, probably rookie of the year at this stage. And the Conning had a decent first 3 quarters, but faded away in the last quarter. So he might be a trade out for me this week, which we'll get to later in the video. I shouldn't have got rid of him. I should have got rid of DeConning a few weeks ago and should have kept Fraser after the last couple of weeks. I got rid of the wrong player, put it that way. And then we got Reed 90 on the bench, a little bit frustrating. Lost 18 points, wasn't too much. And then Carroll 54, which is all right. Traded him in, happy with that. I think defence is pretty much okay, other than probably get rid of Fraser when I did. You can't really predict these things in Supercoach. But the Conning, he's probably going to be traded out maybe soon, hopefully to a Whitfield. I think, defence is not really a huge problem. There's maybe a few mistakes that I made that could be a little bit strengthened, but it's not a complete disaster. I think where I need to focus on is the other 2 lines, particularly the midfield. And I traded in Dacos, which is probably one of the best moves I've probably made this week, or probably for the year. Being 125. Didn't go quite off. Didn't really dominate as what I was expecting. It was more of an even spread with Collingwood. Like 6, 7, 8 players did really well, which is the reason why they won. They didn't really have one player particularly stand out. I know Sidebottle got the medal, but it was pretty even with their top 8 players. So Dacos didn't completely dominate as much as what we probably expected. That's what he has done in previous weeks. So it looks like he's back to his best. Started off slow for this at the start of the season, the first few rounds, but he's got back to his best. So I'll just VC him when you can, or captain him, depending who he's got. 125, just the standard score. It's nothing crazy, but it's not terrible either. And Sarong, 108, and that's pretty much his average for the year. So he's been a little disappointing, Sarong, to be honest, this season. Hasn't really gone right off. Hasn't been a disaster, but I think Brayshaw stealing all the credit. Brayshaw got 150, 160, and he's been an underrated player, really, Brayshaw. So he's stealing all the points. So it looks like I chose a wrong Freo player. But hopefully Sarong will bounce back. Will improve further out the season. Who knows? I think he could score high average of 108. I think 115 is where he should be aiming at. And then we've got Rosie, 118 against North Melbourne, which is okay, I guess. Not terrible. He's been a mediocre selection. He's averaged the same as Sarong, and it was a cheaper price. I guess that's okay. I'll probably just hold for now. And then Ashcroft, 99. So again, bounce back though. A lot better than last week. But yeah, not over 100. So he's a hold. And Oliver, 98. It's okay. Hold. He's not really reaching the level that we want. He's not going to get that 115 average that he had the previous few seasons ago, where he was at his peak. He may improve throughout the year again. Who knows? It's just, the last couple of years, he's really fallen off the cliff. It'd be good if he does get back to his best. But in terms of Supercoach, he's probably one of the fake primos that we move on, or he's not even a primo. He's really gained us money. So, yeah, I mean, if you understand why you would trade him, I just think I've got other bigger issues in the side I want to sort out. Players are underperforming, or who are injured, or sort of reached their price point. He's a hold for now. And then Callahan has bounced back well the last 2 weeks with 116 this week, so I'm happy about that. And then Ashcroft might be a trade out this week. If not this week, it'll be the next week. And then you got Camporelli, who wasn't playing, and I usually probably get Kako, and I lost points here with Max Hall, which is what I'm a bit frustrated about. So, 33 points is a bit of a big deal. Took Kako as an option, because I think they'll play in the earlier game. In hindsight, maybe Max Hall had that higher scoring potential. He's just got that better role, not what Kako does. Playing against Collingwood in the four lines, probably not really the worst matchup, although it was a wet. He did kick a goal to get Essendon in front, so it wasn't a disaster game. This is probably a slow burn. He's hoping for that breakout game where he gets like 3 goals. And I reckon he has a good chance against North Melbourne this week. It's probably the best option, best chance I reckon for the year at this stage. So if you can get like 3+ goals and you get a score of an 80 or 90, then that'd be good. That's what we want. And we're going to probably hold on for another couple of weeks before we move on. But I think with Kako, it was never really making him out too much money. It was just a job security. This is probably a hold at this stage. Max Hall is probably going to be a hold now because his break-evens are going to be a bit lower now. There's a few other players I want to trade out first before Hall. Probably the best loophole option in the midfield here, or emergency option that I've got at the moment. To be kind of silly trading him out yet for this round. Freo next week. It's going to be interesting, that matchup. Considering they're playing a strong midfield at Brisbane, he did alright, Hall. And then you've got the rucks did really well. Sherry 158 and the Conning 135. So if you captain Sherry, you'd be laughing. Actually, a lot of the rucks did well. You had Gawn who did even better. So if you had Gawn, you'd be over the moon if you had him as captain. Sort of what really separated the top players who did well this week compared to everyone else. And then Boyd obviously didn't play. Not too sure if he's going to play again, the form that Marshall's in. And then you got Horne-Francis, 111. So he's bounced back after having a slow start, and you kind of look like a fool if you got rid of him. I mean, I was never going to trade out for Horne-Francis unless he got injured, just simply because, it's the start of the season. Some players are going to take a bit while to get going. And he was always going to finish in a top 6 or near about it with the forward line. And then Ranklin, 120. Happy with that. McRae, 77. So he's last 3 rounds has been slowed down a little bit. But everyone's got McRae, so it's not a huge deal. Then you got Daniel, 89. So didn't quite reach that 100 score that we want. And again, these 4 players, just about every team has them. I think I've seen a few people with that ranking though, which is sort of like me with Bailey Smith, which we'll get to that in a minute. And then Davidson is probably the player I'm going to have to trade out this week because he had to break even at 32. He only gave me 6,000 and he only scored 51. So there are 3 reasons why I'm going to get rid of him this week. He's going to be must trade out. And Cleary 89, decent score considering Sydney got well beaten in the end. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Yeah, it's better than expected. So Cleary, good decision bringing him in a few weeks ago. Had a mediocre week last week, but bounced back this week. And then I traded in Will White, 45. Not particularly the best. He could have got a goal, which probably would have put him towards around 60, 55. Got it behind. So, look, he's made 40k so far. We'll see if he plays next week. Who did Carlton got? Adelaide Oval too. It's probably, he may be still in. It could be, dead rookie potentially. And then you've got the flex. Moraz went up a little bit. So, look, it's been a failed rookie trading. Made a bit of money, but it hasn't got that other 80 or 90 score that we're looking for. So who should I trade out? I think Davison has to go. Moraz I was thinking about. They've got a lot tougher matchup than Bulldogs this week. Who knows if he still gets a game. I'll probably, if I'm going to use the boosts, I'll probably get rid of Moraz before Hall, even maybe Ashcroft. Who did Brisbane play? Gold Coast. It's a tough matchup. Ashcroft's made more money. Actually, no, Davison would have made more money, but Ashcroft's had a high average. I'm just trying to think what to do here. If I was going to trade out, bring in Davidson for Christian Brachaka. Really wanted to bring in Martin as well. But Martin had a mediocre game, so his price is going to drop next week. And then I'll bring him in. The problem is he's playing North. He could potentially get like a 140, 150 game. If Essendon play really well and win by 10 goals, 50 points, that's potentially what can happen out of that game. So that's one bit of concern. Petrarca also went up in price this week. Who I want to trade out? Look, I'm probably just going to get rid of De Koning. And then bring in McDonald if he plays. In terms of the forward line, look, I could even bring in Bailey Smith. Potentially. Which is probably one of the silliest things I, traded out Bailey Smith before the season start. It was just silly of me, so I can either bring him in or a Petrarca as well for Davidson. Probably bring in Petrarca now. At least with 229. And what I could do. The problem is there's no really any midfielders to really come in. And that's where I'm really struggling. Which is really odd. Usually midfielders are usually the stronger bench rookies we get. They just really haven't come on this year. It's very weird this year. Like, you've had decent defenders come along and decent forwards. But the midfielders just haven't really come along. There's been a few half ones with Max Hall. Some better than expected. Ashcroft's been okay. But there's no one really been lighting the world on fire. Which is a bit odd. You usually get at least one or two more. So what I'll do in that, I could do a trade in, and I could potentially maybe, not quite Callahan yet. I think he's still got another price ride. Could even maybe bring in, Bryce has still got money. That's the thing. I don't really want to trade any of these defenders at all. Once Bryce makes another cash rise, maybe bring in the Whitfield. I ideally want to keep him though. So I think the defence is pretty much fine. Just regret trading out, Fraser when I did. Well, yes, I mean, it sort of was it. It was performing poorly, but it is what it is now. Yeah, I mean, probably hold off uh, the boost this stage. Unless, yeah, if there was a decent midfielder coming on the bubble, then yeah, trade out Ashcroft for it, get that money or upgrade. Or just have a look at the midfielders I could potentially bring in too. Just go back to my team, get rid of Ash. Say, I did make that boost. Yeah, what midfielders can I actually afford? That's the question. So trade out Ashcroft. Say if I do 577, it's probably lower than we want. Average, so I could bring in a Sinclair. He's gone down 35k. So here's another player I could look to bring in, which would be interesting. Have him as a swap, which might even come in handy. But you want him in defence. Thing is, he's actually ranked 8th in the midfield, which is pretty good for a defender. So I think you want Weirfield and Sinclair in defence. Matt Rao had a poor game, so it's still the consistency with Matt Rao. Like, he'll have these top games when he just performs poorly. I mean, he's probably a budget midfielder you can bring in if you're that desperate. I mean, I could potentially bring in Matt Rao, see if he's break even, maybe. Even a Dunkley, like 529 for Dunkley is pretty good. And you can have him on before you can maybe get to that Uber Elite. That's actually a good deal. 529 for Dunkley. Geez, that's an absolute steal. I need to have a bit more I probably might even bring in Dunkley for an Ashcroft upgrade to his teammate. That's actually not bad. You know, and then what I can do, you've got McCluggage is actually averaging better than expected, and you got Liberatore, Hewitt doing better than expected, underrated. So all these ones are probably overpriced at the highest price point at the moment. So maybe even a Josh Dunkley. I can do a boost to Dunkley from Levi Ashcroft to Dunkley. And all of a sudden you got a half decent midfield all of a sudden. Or I could bring in a Smith in the forward line for Ashcroft. Then switch him out for Henderson and then have a dead rookie there and put, Max Hall in. Things I won't have any other bench options. I could switch. That'd be interesting there. I could upgrade to a Smith, bring in Dunkley, who in my opinion is undervalued. Complete that trade. 529 for Dunkley, bargain. And then all of a sudden you got 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, almost certain primos in your team, in my team, and then you've got 4, almost half primo there with Ashcroft. And I've only really got like 1 rookie to say if I had the Hall there. Then all of a sudden, this is actually not too bad. Yeah, I actually reckon that's a better idea than paying up for a Bont Butters at this stage. Bring in low. And then I've got Daniel. He's probably okay there for now. He might even be. Then really got Cleary. Probably want to bring in Martin. Maybe even a Smith in at some point. I'm going to bring in Smith this week, but I reckon Dunkley's more undervalued now. I should have brought Smith in a few weeks ago, but I had other issues. But I reckon that he's a best buy of the round. And I only really got maybe 2 defenders as well. So I want to bring in Sinclair and Whitfield in. And then later on, I'd love to bring in Bont and Butters eventually in my team at some point when they go down. They've both been injured at the start of this season, so hopefully they have a poor game. and it becomes a bit more feasible, and then we have a bit more of a rookie options coming through. But yeah, I actually will use the boost and bring in Dunkley. That would help me. And then pretty much I've only got, really, if Oscar McDonald plays, which I hope he does, his name, McDonald plays, then I've only really got 2 poor rookies on, and I've got 1 half decent rookie, and then I've also got, some decent cover up there. If these other rookies play, then I can sort of trade him out soon. For another, hopefully, we just need more people on the bubble, particularly in the midfield. That's my major concern. But I actually reckon I reckon kind of a fool not bringing Dunkley in this week. I reckon he's undervalued, 5.29. He must have had a poor game, either last week or the week prior. I reckon it's undervalued compared to some of the options. He's saving 100k. Bring him in, a good player. I reckon that's deal of the week. Probably want to get rid of Moraes too. Got Hall there. So in terms of vice captain option, it would have been good if you had like sort of a Zach Merritt. Could probably even put Sherry in, because we don't have a proper ruckman. He's going to go nuts, most likely. And then the captain, West Coast. You could maybe see Oliver or Petrarca potentially against West Coast. Although West Coast beat Melbourne over there last season, so who knows? We would take the gamble with Petrarca. But Gawn, you have Gawn. He might even be the highest average rating ruck in the round next week. He might already is. Let's have a look at the ruck rankings for a minute. What am I doing? Players, wrong button. So, fielders ruck. Gone highest average already. So, he started off better than expected. I mean, he's always been a good player. One of the best Supercoach players. Or one of the best Supercoach ruckmen of all time. So, if you have him, Sherry against third, Goldstein. Goldstein did alright on the weekend, though. He wasn't too bad. But Thea, you've got Nick Bryan out, and then you've got Draper out as well. So that'd be a great VC option. For captain, you could take the gamble with, if you don't have Gawn, maybe Petrarca or Oliver potentially. The other Collingwood, Geelong. Geelong's midfield hasn't been too crash hot, even though they've won a few games. They're not really dominating. You could still go Dacos. Who the three have got? St Kilda potentially. They've been a bit average. Brisbane dominated them. Although it is at Marvel, so that's going to be an interesting matchup there. It's going to be tough. Who want to pick? I'll go safe with Dacos. Although Petrarca gets 150 against West Coast, that wouldn't surprise me either. Just think based on form and just, Petrarca's still recovering from his injury, although he's bounced back this week. So Oliver potentially too, but he hasn't really shown enough evidence. I think he had one good game, but it's been mediocre ever since. And then obviously you have Reed there, I guess, depending on Carroll if he plays. Although you sort of want all your rookies playing anyway, your bench. You may lose to 20 or 30, but I think long term it's better for the cash gen. And Kako, I need someone as a bench option there. Max Hall, I'm just going to have him on there. And that's the problem here. I think that's the biggest weakness in my side, is I still got Moraz, Hall on there. Which I'll need to get rid of Hall next week. I just hope there's a midfielder on the bubble. I really need a midfielder on the bubble, then get rid of Hall. I think, Moraz. So hopefully I do bounce back next week. It's just been a bit of a disaster of a season, really. Just trading players, and the players I trade out end up doing well, and not having Smith at the start, removing him, had him all pre-season, just remove him before the season, which was silly. He did miss one round, but yeah, that was just probably one of the silliest moves I've done this season. And it's kind of like making me look like an idiot. Then again, the forward lines actually held up well. If I could have had, Smith and Cleary, almost a full primo forward line, which is really rare this season, having opportunities in the forward line. Like, really ever seen that. And there's a few other players we potentially could have as well. I've got Petrarca, I've got Martin as well to pick from, and a few other players as well. So, yeah, I think next week going forward, I want to bring in Sinclair in midfield soon. Maybe Martin, maybe a couple of weeks later. And that should be what I'm planning in the next few weeks. But look, yeah, average week. Better than last week, though. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction. You got to be positive. Look, maybe I should have just give up altogether. But, I'm not going to still give up. Maybe try and aim for top 20,000 still. 10,000 might be out of reach. But all it takes is just a couple of good weeks to get back into it. All right, then. Well, thank you for watching. And you probably did better than me. And have a great week.